If you look at the data from the Army Corps of Engineers, most of our bridges and roads have been getting better and better and better with the roughly $200 billion a year we were investing as a country. Great, that's super. And then somebody comes along and says, let's do an infrastructure bill to spend more. Well, if you're me, you'd say, hey, is that a good use of tax dollars? Because I can live with the balance. If you're my daughter-in-law with our grandchild, guess what? You might say if there's even 1% of roads or bridges that are deemed unsafe, we should spend more. So there's no normative way to say what is better and what is worse. So no scorecarding, just here are the numbers. And before you have your damn debate, at least let's debate from what's true, and let's not be like a politician where, boom, we just grab one number out of the ether, give it no context to somehow alarm people or excite people. And if you look at them in context, things look very different. I'll give you one example. If you look at the median wage in our country, the median wage has gone up 21% essentially since the start of COVID. At the same time, inflation's been about 19% since the start of COVID. So that's what's true by the numbers. Now, there's a lot of feelings from politicians. There's a lot of feelings from citizens. I don't dispute any of those. But the numbers are what the numbers are, and how people choose to react, what people forecast for the future, what actions people want to take, that becomes partisan. All of that becomes partisan. I majored in applied math and economics, and I used to think economics was a science. I really did. And now I know there's left-wing and right-wing economists. It's a little hard to think about it as a science anymore. So, the last thing, we only use government data. Much as a corporation only uses its own data, we're not asking people to look at survey data from a think tank that might be biased. I believe in general we have very professional statisticians in our government agencies. It's imperfect. We don't collect all the data. Sometimes two collection systems leads to things that don't say exactly the same. But if you're a decision maker in this country, I don't know where better to start. And if you're a politician and you want to complain about the data, then I say to you, damn you. That's on you. You politicians are in a position to make the data, if you don't think it's right, push on those statisticians. The citizens can't do that. You want us to believe that. Anyway, long-winded, but that's how I feel about it.
So to give people a sort of a sample of what you're talking about, I wanted to play a clip from a video that is about budgetary issues. Here is something from USA Facts talking about the aging of the American population.
People are more likely to live alone today than any time in the past. 29% of households today consist of individuals living alone without a child, compared to 13% in 1960. Second, a greater share of the population is over 65, increasing from 13% of the total in 2010 to nearly 18% in 2023. More retirees rely on income from Social Security and support from government services like Medicare.
So, obviously this is a breakdown of just basic statistics. And then, as you say, the implications can be taken in any of a number of different directions. I think there's some pretty obvious implications from that particular clip. When you have an aging population, that means that you're going to need more money going into the services that pay for that aging population, or if you don't have more money coming in, you're going to have to cut the services that are available to that aging population. That's just an inescapable conclusion, obviously.
Yep. Yeah. I'll let you make the conclusion, but strictly by my math lessons, I think kind of anybody else's math lessons, it's true. It's absolutely true. We don't make that forecast, but if you ask me as a nonpartisan person who can use Excel, yeah, I'd say that's probably what Excel would say.
So how do you determine which subjects to focus on? So USA Facts is pretty comprehensive, but it can't cover everything, and you have to put your focus some places as opposed to others. How do you decide which areas you want to put your energy into?
Yeah, we absolutely, though, start comprehensively. There's no question. We don't hide anything, because if you don't talk at all about some area, in a sense, you're not true to this notion of keeping things in context. How much do we spend on, if you will, crime and criminal justice? Well, you got to know that. Now, do we give you this much in terms of data that might help you understand, or do we give you this much? So we start wide and just a little deep, but we've taken some subjects like immigration, like the budget, where we have gone deeper. There's other topics where I'd like to go deeper. I don't think our crime data is as deep as I would like it to be for people to really have the numbers to make decisions, whether it's in their mayoral races or typically the mayoral races or county prosecutor races. Does that data exist in a form we can package it? It would be useful. Housing. The number one thing households spend money on is housing. And yet, people say there's homelessness, houses are not affordable. There is a depth that we can provide in that topic that we do not today. So we do a good job on some, and I wouldn't say we do a bad job anywhere, but we have an opportunity for increased depth, particularly if you look at these things in a local context. Most people don't care about housing prices nationwide. They take their interest in the housing prices in Jackson, Mississippi, or Seattle, Washington, or wherever.
And so, in making these videos, obviously you're breaking down the stats. Do you get into issues of causation? Like what is causing the stats to move in a particular way or not? Because that obviously does get pretty political pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, we don't do causation. We do not do causation precisely because it does get political. And if there was if economics was a science, then there'd be economists who worked for the government who would give you what they would call a scientific explanation of what's happened. Not going forward. That always gets political. But even going back, if it was a pure science, causation would be clear. But how do you get causation? Something happens, like COVID. How do you figure out causation on what happened before to what happens now? Innovation. You get some major innovation in society, the personal computer. People speculated during the Clinton era that the advance of technology really stimulated the growth that caused budgets then to, even during, I think, one or two of those years, run a surplus. I loved it when I was selling PCs and software that people were saying that. I can't prove to you there was causation there. So we avoid causation. We try to avoid adjectives. Adjectives are partisan, numbers are not. Some people like to say, God, it went from 1 to 2. They wouldn't say it goes from 1 to 2. They'll say something doubled. Well, it might have gone from 1 to 2, but if it's in the context of 100, 1 to 2, the doubling doesn't help you understand the full context. It's a huge increase. Instead of saying double, it's a huge increase. Well, it is, but not in context. So the more we can avoid adjectives, and we're not perfect on this, the better off we are in terms of just presenting, the numbers. Now, making that interesting, it's a little hard. People want to know why something happened. They want to know what to do about it. They don't want to be some people don't like numbers, but it is the best ways to set the context in what I would call a very factual way. Some areas don't lend themselves very well to this kind of data because they wind up being issues which are really driven by people's hearts as opposed to numbers. And there are some numbers, but not a lot of the numbers, for example, on abortion, pro-life, pro-choice. It's not an area, we have a little bit of data, but it's not an area we're focused because I don't think it certainly doesn't affect spending, outcome in that sense. So we haven't spent a lot of time on it, just to give you an example.
It's more with Steve Ballmer in a moment. First, October 7th marked the one-year anniversary of the worst attack on Jews since the Holocaust. 1,200 Israelis lost their lives. Over 250 were taken hostage. The war in Israel continues to rage on today. Missiles are flying. Tensions are high. Our allies are under attack. It seems like every time you turn on the news, there's another crisis unfolding in the region. Israel and its people are facing attacks from enemies on all sides who seek its destruction. But there is hope. The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews is on the ground, providing food, shelter, and safety to those in need during this crisis. Since the war started, thousands of reservists, everyday Israeli citizens, have left their families to serve their country. Soldiers have been injured. Their families need our support. Your gift of $45 today helps the fellowship provide food and other necessities to these families to help them survive. Here's what I need you to do right now. Go to benforthefellowship.org. That's benforthefellowship.org to help make a gift today. In the face of these many threats, the fellowship's ongoing work providing security to Israelis has never been more important. Remember, that's benforthefellowship.org. They're doing amazing work on the ground in the Holy Land right now. benforthefellowship.org. God bless and thank you. So one of the issues that you mentioned a little bit earlier that I wanted to play a clip from another one of the videos is the issue of immigration, which obviously is a very hot-button issue. Kamala Harris is visiting the border. President Trump has obviously campaigned heavily all 3 times he's campaigned on issues surrounding the border. Here's a bit of the video from USA Facts about immigration.
Let's step back for a fact check on unauthorized immigration. 2.5 million encounters with unauthorized immigrants at the southwest border in 2023. Of these encounters, 1.3 million people were released into the country.